Bora woke up to the sound of urgent knocking on her quarters door. She had been dreaming about home and kimchi and her mother's voice calling her for dinner. The knocking was so loud and persistent that she thought there might be an emergency on the space station. When she opened the door, she found a small blue alien with large, worried eyes. It was one of the council staff members who helped with daily operations. The little alien was breathing heavily as if it had been running. "Human Bora, please come quickly," the alien said in a high-pitched voice. "There is an emergency council session and all the representatives are requesting your immediate presence. They say it is extremely urgent." Bora quickly got dressed and followed the staff member through the corridors of the space station. She had never seen so much activity this early in the morning. Aliens were rushing back and forth carrying official-looking documents and talking in hushed, worried voices when she entered the council chamber. She was shocked by what she saw. All 12 alien representatives were standing at their podiums instead of sitting in their usual chairs. Each one was holding thick, formal documents with official seals and ribbons. The atmosphere felt heavy and serious like a funeral. The ancient council leader Velthon looked both sad and determined as he gestured for Bora to take a seat in the very center of the chamber, where only the most important galactic leaders had ever been allowed to sit human. "Bora," he began, and his voice echoed through the vast chamber. "What you have taught us over the past 2 days has forced us to face a very difficult truth. We have been failing in our duties as leaders for centuries, possibly for thousands of years." Held up a formal document that was covered with complex alien writing and official government seals. After extensive discussions with our homeworlds and very deep thinking about our methods of governance, all 12 races represented in this council have reached the same conclusion. The Velkari representative Kevnor stepped forward, and his 4 eyes were focused on Bora with an expression of deep respect. "We have been making decisions based on our own assumptions rather than the actual needs of those we serve. We have cared more about appearing intelligent than being helpful. We have created complex solutions to problems that did not exist, while ignoring real problems that we never bothered to investigate." The Nexian prism. 7 pulsed, with determined light that made her crystal body look like a rainbow. "Most importantly, we have prevented younger civilizations from participating in galactic governance because we assumed they had nothing to teach us. This was not just wrong, it was harmful to billions of beings across the galaxy." Bora felt a growing sense of worry as she began to understand what was happening. "What are you saying?" she asked. The council leader lifted his document higher so everyone could see the official seals. "We are saying that effective immediately all 12 races are resigning from the Galactic Council. We are stepping down from our positions as galactic leaders." The chamber filled with the sound of documents being placed on podiums as each alien representative formally submitted their resignation papers. Bora stared in complete shock, unable to believe what she was seeing. "But you cannot all resign," she said, jumping to her feet. "The galaxy needs leadership. There are thousands of civilizations that depend on the Council for trade agreements and conflict resolution and coordination between different species." The Deepmar representative Deep Current bubbled sadly through his water tank. "Exactly. And we have been doing a terrible job at all of those things for longer than we want to admit. It is time for new leadership. Leadership that actually listens to the people it serves instead of making assumptions." The Hiver representative. Click 12 clicked his mandibles in a pattern that indicated firm agreement. "We propose that the new Galactic Council should include representatives from younger civilizations, species that have not forgotten the importance of asking questions and listening to answers." Bora felt completely overwhelmed by what she was hearing. "I cannot. Earth cannot. We just learned about space travel 6 months ago. We are not ready to help lead a galactic government. We do not have the experience or the knowledge." The ancient council leader smiled for the first time since Bora had met him. That humility, that recognition of your own limitations, that is exactly why your species should be involved. We lost that humility centuries ago, and it made us terrible leaders. The Velkari representative nodded with all 4 eyes. "We are not suggesting that Earth should replace us entirely. We are suggesting that the new council should include many different species, especially younger ones, that still remember how to ask simple questions and listen to simple answers. The quantum builder shift pattern changed into a shape that indicated certainty. The galaxy needs leaders who understand that being smart is not the same as being wise. Leaders who know that the best solutions are often the simplest ones over. The following days and weeks, news of the Great Resignation spread across the galaxy, faster than light communication networks could carry it. The reaction was immediate and intense. Some civilizations panicked, worrying about who would manage galactic trade and resolve conflicts between species. Others celebrated having felt ignored and misunderstood by the old council for generations. But something remarkable began to happen. Without the old council making top-down decisions, planets and star systems started communicating directly with each other. Trade networks developed naturally as civilizations discovered they could help each other without waiting for official approval. Civilizations that had been waiting for council solutions for decades started solving problems together. A group of mining planets shared equipment with agricultural worlds in exchange for food. A cluster of medical research facilities began working together to solve diseases that affected multiple species. Bo-Ra found herself at the center of organizing a completely new form of galactic governance, one based on communication cooperation and the revolutionary idea that the best leaders are those who ask good questions and listen carefully to the answers. Representatives from hundreds of younger civilizations arrived at the council station. Each species brought their own ideas about leadership and problem-solving. The Galactic Council was rebuilt from the ground up with the simple principle that no decision should be made without first asking the affected populations what they actually wanted. The 12 ancient alien races did not disappear or become irrelevant. Instead, they became advisors and teachers sharing their vast knowledge and advanced technology, while learning humility from younger civilizations. They discovered that stepping down from power did not make them less important. It made them more useful. The new council was smaller, more flexible, and much more effective. Instead of massive construction projects that took centuries, they focused on helping civilizations communicate and trade with each other. Problems that the old council would have spent decades analyzing were often solved in weeks by simply connecting the right planets with each other. And it all started because one human from Korea asked a simple question. Why don't you just ask the people what they actually need? The galaxy learned that wisdom is not about having all the answers. Wisdom is about asking the right questions and being humble enough to hear the answers even when they come from someone you thought could not possibly teach you anything. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the simplest observations. Sometimes the smartest thing an intelligent being can do is admit they do not know everything. And sometimes the best way to lead is to stop talking and start listening. Bo-Ra Kim became the first human to serve on the Galactic Council, but more importantly, she became the person who reminded an entire galaxy that good leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about making sure everyone in the room has a chance to be heard. When Bo-Ra entered the council chamber for the second time, everything felt different. The proud, confident aliens from the day before now looked like students who had been caught cheating on an important exam. Several of them were holding data tablets and staring at screens that showed the results of their overnight phone calls to various planets. The great chamber that had seemed so impressive yesterday now felt heavy with embarrassment and confusion. The holographic displays that usually showed complex mathematical formulas were turned off. The aliens who normally sat up straight in their chairs were slumped over. Looking tired and worried, then the ancient council leader gestured for Bo-Ra to take a seat much closer to the center of the chamber instead of the corner where observers usually sat. This was highly unusual because the center area was reserved for the most important representatives. Human Bo-Ra Velton began, and his voice sounded different than before, less confident and more humble. Your question yesterday has led us to discover some very concerning problems with how we govern the galaxy. We would like to ask for your guidance. Bo-Ra looked around at the 12 alien representatives with surprise. Your guidance, but you are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. You have technology that can move planets and computers that think faster than light. Surely you do not need guidance from someone whose planet was just discovered 6 months ago. The Nexian, Representative Prism. 7 flickered with embarrassed colors that made her crystal body look dim and sad. That is exactly our problem, she said. We have been so focused on being advanced and showing off our intelligence that we forgot to be useful. Your species may be younger than ours, but perhaps you understand things about leadership that we have forgotten. Bora nodded slowly as she began to understand the situation better. On Earth, we learned something important during our history. She said the best leaders are not always the smartest people in the room. The best leaders are the ones who listen carefully to the people they serve. She stood up and walked to the center of the chamber holding her simple tablet. The aliens watched, her with the kind of attention they usually reserved for solving the most complex scientific problems. In Korea, where I come from, Bora continued, we have local government officials who spend time walking through neighborhoods and talking to families about their daily problems. They do not just sit in offices and look at statistics. They go out and ask people directly what they need. She tapped her tablet and showed a simple organizational chart that appeared on the chamber's holographic display. We have representatives who hold regular town meetings where any citizen can stand up and speak directly to their elected leaders. We use technology to conduct surveys and polls so we can understand what people really want, not what we think they should want. The Valkyrie representative Kev Nor leaned forward with all 4 eyes focused intensely on Bora. But how do you manage the complexity, he asked. How do you make decisions when different groups want different things? How do you balance conflicting needs across large populations? That is where real leadership skill comes in. Bora explained, good leadership is not about having all the answers before anyone asks questions. It is about asking the right questions and listening carefully to the answers. Sometimes the best solution is not the most complicated one. She manipulated her tablet and projected a simple diagram that showed planets connected by communication lines. For example, yesterday, you were planning to spend 200 years and 50 billion credits building energy stations. But what if the real solution is much simpler? What if some planets have extra energy while other planets need medical supplies and they just need better ways to trade with each other? The chamber became completely silent as the aliens processed this idea. The concept of planets helping each other directly without massive council-managed construction projects was so simple that none of their advanced brains had ever considered it. Ancient council leader Velthon spoke slowly, as if he was thinking through each word. You are suggesting that instead of managing every problem from the top down, we should help civilizations connect with each other so they can solve problems together. Exactly. Bora smiled and her enthusiasm was obvious. On Earth, when one country has too much rice and another country needs rice but has extra oil, they trade with each other directly. They do not wait for a world government to build rice factories and oil wells for everyone. The Deepmar representative Deep Current bubbled excitedly in his water tank. This approach would be much faster than our current methods. Instead of spending decades planning massive construction projects, we could help civilizations connect and start trading within months. The Hiver representative Click 12 clicked his mandibles in a pattern that indicated agreement, and it would cost almost nothing compared to our current infrastructure projects. We would just need to create better communication networks and simple trading systems. Bora nodded enthusiastically. And most importantly, it puts the power back in the hands of the people who actually live with these problems every day. They know what they need much better than anyone else possibly could. She walked around the center of the chamber as she spoke, her voice getting stronger with confidence. You could create a simple system where planets can post what they have too much of and what they need. Then other planets can respond directly. The Council's job would be to help them communicate and make fair trades, not to decide what everyone needs. The quantum builder shift pattern changed into a shape that indicated deep thought. This would also solve the information problem that we discovered last night. Instead of trying to guess what planets need, we would know exactly what they need, because they would tell us directly. The Zephyrian representative whose metal skin was changing to thoughtful silver colors added. And if problems changed over time, we would know immediately because the affected planets would update their requests in real time, instead of sending messages that get lost in bureaucratic systems. Vel then looked around at his fellow representatives and saw something that had not been in their expressions for centuries: humility. These ancient, advanced civilizations were learning that wisdom was different from intelligence, and that sometimes the most sophisticated solution was to step back and let others solve their own problems. Human Bora, the council leader, said formally, "Would you be willing to help us develop new methods of governance based on these principles?" Bora looked surprised again. "I would be honored to help. But I think you should also consult other young civilizations. Earth might not be the only planet that has learned these lessons. Maybe there are other species out there who have different but equally valuable approaches to leadership and problem solving." The aliens exchanged glances as they realized something that challenged their most basic assumptions about intelligence. They had been so focused on their own superiority that they had never considered learning from younger civilizations. They had assumed that being older and more technologically advanced automatically made them wiser. The Velkari representative Kevnor stood up slowly, using all four legs to steady himself. "I believe we need to completely restructure how the Galactic Council operates." The other representatives nodded in agreement, each one coming to the same conclusion. The human had not just answered their question about the outer rim planets. She had shown them that their entire approach to leadership was backwards. They had been trying to appear smart instead of being helpful. They had been making complex solutions instead of effective ones. They had been talking instead of listening. And most importantly, they had been assuming instead of asking. The galaxy was about to change. And it was all because one young human had reminded them of something very simple. The best way to help people is to ask them what kind of help they actually want. The council meeting ended in a way that had never happened before in galactic history. Nobody voted on anything. Nobody made any grand announcements. Nobody felt proud of their intelligence. The 12 alien representatives walked away from the chamber, feeling confused and worried, like students who had just failed a test they thought would be easy. Bora was escorted back to her temporary quarters on the council station. She had no idea that her simple question had started something that would change everything. The aliens had given her a small room with a window that looked out at the stars. She sat by that window and wrote notes about what had happened, completely unaware that across the station, some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy could not sleep. Kevnor, the Velkari representative, was in his quarters, staring at his 4 personal communication screens. His 4 brains were working independently, trying to process what the human had said. One brain kept repeating the question over and over. Another brain was calculating how many planets they had never actually contacted. The third brain was reviewing old council decisions. The fourth brain was starting to feel something that Velkari rarely experienced: embarrassment, unable to stop thinking about it. Kevnor did something he had never done in his 300 years of council service. He decided to actually call some of the outer rim planets directly. His purple hands shook slightly as he activated his personal communication array. The first planet he contacted was Zirion 7, a world that, according to council databases, was experiencing severe energy shortages. Kevnor had personally worked on calculations for their energy crisis for months. "Greetings, Zirion 7, planetary," Governor Kevnor said through the universal translator. "This is Council Representative Kevnor. We are working on solutions for your energy crisis and wanted to check on your current status." The planetary governor appeared on the screen. He was a tired-looking humanoid alien with gray skin and 3 eyes that looked surprised to be receiving a call from the Council Energy Crisis Representative Kevnor. The governor scratched his head with confusion. "We appreciate your concern, but we do not have an energy crisis. We solved our power problems 2 years ago by switching to solar collection satellites." Kevnor felt like someone had hit him with a plasma cannon. "Solar satellites. But our records show that Zirion 7 has urgent energy infrastructure needs." The governor looked even more confused. "That request was from 4 years ago, sir. We sent multiple updates explaining that we no longer needed energy help. We explained our new solar system and asked for assistance with medical supplies instead. 3 of our major cities are dealing with a plague outbreak, and we have been requesting medical aid for 8 months. But the council databases show," Kevnor started to say, then stopped. His purple face was turning a darker shade of purple. We never received updates about medical aid requests. We sent them every month, sir. The governor looked sad. We assumed the council was too busy with more important matters. We have been trying to treat the plague with our limited medical supplies. Many people have died while we waited for help. Kevnor ended the call and immediately contacted another planet. The results were the same. The planet they thought needed new mining equipment was actually struggling with food distribution problems. They had sent dozens of messages asking for help with transportation networks, but those messages had somehow never reached the council. Similar conversations were happening all across the galaxy that night. The Nexian representative, Prism 7, was using her crystal processing power to contact multiple planets simultaneously. What she discovered made her entire body flicker with distressed colors. 5 planets they thought needed water. Purification technology were actually dealing with communication system failures. They could not talk to other planets in their system to coordinate trade and resources. The council had been planning to spend 50 years building water plants when all these planets really needed was better communication equipment. The Deepmar representative Deep Current was having equally disturbing conversations from his water tank. An entire star system they believed was requesting advanced transportation. Technology was actually trying to get help with education systems. Their children had no schools and no teachers, but the council had been designing expensive space highways instead. Each phone call revealed the same terrible pattern. The Galactic Council had been solving problems that no longer existed, while completely ignoring the real problems that planetary populations were facing every day. Their sophisticated databases were filled with outdated information. Their complex planning systems were addressing the wrong issues. Their advanced intelligence was being used to fix things that were not broken. Meanwhile, Bo-Ra was in her quarters talking to Earth through a video call. Dr. Taemin Park, her supervisor, appeared on her small communication screen. He was sitting in his office in Seoul and looked concerned about her expression. Bo-Ra, how did the council meeting progress? You look troubled, he said. Bo-Ra explained everything that had happened, including her question and the strange reactions from the alien representatives. Dr. Park listened carefully and took notes on his own tablet. You asked them if they had consulted with the people they were trying to help, Dr. Park asked, sounding surprised. Yes, and they looked at me like I had suggested something completely impossible, she replied. It was very strange, Supervisor. These beings have incredible intelligence and advanced technology, but they seem to have forgotten something basic about leadership, Dr. Park nodded thoughtfully. In Korea we have an old saying, the farmer knows his own field better than the scholar who studies it from books. It sounds like these aliens have become so focused on being intelligent that they forgot to be wise. Back on the council station, the 12 alien representatives were having emergency meetings with their own species. Each race was discovering that their entire approach to galactic governance was based on wrong information and false assumptions. The Hiver representative Click 12 contacted 23 planets in their sector. Only 4 of them actually needed the solutions the council was preparing to provide. The other 19 had completely different problems that the council had never even heard about. The quantum builder shift pattern was experiencing something that had never happened to their species before doubt. Their ability to see across multiple dimensions was useless if they were looking at the wrong problems in the first place. The ancient Morvek council leader, Velthan, called an emergency session for the next morning. When the representatives gathered again, the atmosphere was completely different from the day before. Gone was the confident energy and proud displays of intelligence. Instead, there was an uncomfortable tension and growing shame. Fellow council members, Velthan began, and his voice sounded older than his 800 years. It appears that we have a serious problem with our information gathering methods. Based on preliminary investigations conducted last night, it seems that many of our current projects may be addressing concerns that no longer exist. One by one, each alien race reported their findings. The Zephyrians had discovered that 17 planets they thought needed atmospheric processors were actually struggling with social conflicts. Between different population groups, the council had been planning to change entire planetary atmospheres, when what the people really needed was help with communication and conflict resolution. the room filled with an uncomfortable realization that their sophisticated systems and advanced intelligence had led them to make decisions based on assumptions rather than reality. They had been governing the galaxy without actually knowing what the galaxy needed, after hours of sharing their disturbing discoveries. Velthan looked around the chamber and made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Bring the human back," he said quietly. "We need to ask her more questions." The great alien minds that had ruled space for millennia had just admitted that they needed help from a species they had considered primitive, and the most shocking part was that they were right. The question hung in the air like a dangerous weapon that nobody knew how to handle. The massive council chamber that had been filled with alien voices and complex discussions suddenly became as quiet as empty space. 12 of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy stared at Bora Kim as if she had just spoken in a language that did not exist. Kev Nor, the Velkari representative, blinked all four of his eyes one after another. His purple face showed an expression that nobody in the chamber had ever seen before: complete confusion. His four brains were trying to process what the human had just said, but the words seemed to make no sense when put together. "Ask them what they need," he repeated very slowly, as if he was trying to understand a puzzle that had pieces missing. The mathematical symbols on his skin stopped glowing and changing. They just sat there looking dim and confused. Bora nodded and looked down at her tablet again. "Yes," she said in her quiet but clear voice. "In all your presentations, nobody mentioned actually talking to the people who live on those planets. You have calculated energy requirements based on population numbers and estimated how much power they use. But has anyone asked the people there what their real problems are?" The Nexian representative Prism. 7 flickered with colors that had never been seen before in the council chamber. Her crystal body was designed to process millions of calculations every second. But this simple question was making her systems work harder than they ever had before. She was like a supercomputer trying to solve a problem that was too basic for her programming. "We have comprehensive databases about every planet in the Outer Rim," she said, and her musical voice sounded uncertain for the first time in centuries. "We know their population, numbers, their energy consumption patterns, their industrial capacity, their resource availability, their technological development levels there. But do you know what? They want," Bora interrupted gently but firmly. "Do you know if they actually want 340 new energy stations? Or if maybe they have different priorities that are more important to them?" The ancient council leader Velthan shifted in his seat in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. In his 800 years of life, he had attended thousands of council meetings. He had solved problems that affected entire galaxies. He had made decisions that changed the course of history for billions of beings. Never once in all those centuries had anyone suggested simply asking the people who were affected by those decisions what they actually wanted. A younger alien from the insectoid hiver race named Click 12 moved his mandibles in a nervous pattern. The clicking sounds he made were being translated, but everyone could hear the worry in the original clicks. "The Outer Rim planets are less technologically advanced than our civilizations," he said, trying to sound confident. "They do not have the knowledge to understand complex energy distribution systems or the long-term implications of galactic infrastructure development." Bora smiled in the polite way that humans do when they want to disagree without being rude. "Maybe they do not understand quantum energy systems," she said, "but they know if they are cold at night. They know if their hospitals have enough power to save sick people. They know if their farms can grow enough food. They know if their children have light to read by, or if their elderly people can stay warm when the weather gets bad." Another alien from the aquatic Deepmar species spoke through his water-filled breathing tank. His name was Deep Current, and his voice made bubbling sounds even through the universal translator. "Young human," he said, "you do not understand the scale of galactic governance. We cannot make decisions based on individual complaints or personal preferences. We must think in terms of entire star systems, whole civilizations, multiple generations of planning." "I understand that," Bora replied, and she still sounded calm and respectful. "But what if the people on those planets do not actually have an energy crisis? What if they have other problems that you have not noticed? Because you never asked them directly. What if they solved their energy problems years ago but nobody updated your databases? What if they need medical supplies or food distribution systems or better communication networks instead of power stations? A chamber filled with murmurs and whispers as the aliens began talking among themselves in their own languages. The universal translators were working overtime, trying to keep up with 12 different conversations happening at the same time. The sounds mixed together into a confusing noise that showed how disturbed everyone was becoming. This simple question from a species they had considered primitive was making them question everything they thought they knew about leadership and problem solving. It was like discovering that they had been trying to fix broken machines by building new factories instead of asking what was actually broken. Kev. Nord tried to take control of the situation and make things go back to normal. Human, he said, and his 4 eyes focused on Bora with intense concentration. Your suggestion is not practical. There are millions of inhabited worlds in the Outer Rim region. We cannot possibly contact each one individually to ask about their problems. The logistics alone would be impossible. The time required would be enormous. The resources needed would be. Bora tapped her tablet and showed a simple chart she had made during the meeting. According to your own data, she said, there are 847 inhabited planets in the Outer Rim region you were discussing. Earth has a population of 8 billion people, and we regularly conduct surveys and polls to understand what our citizens need and want. With your advanced technology and faster than light communication systems, contacting 847 planets should be much easier than building 340 energy stations across 12 star systems. The silence that followed was heavier and more uncomfortable than before. Each alien representative was beginning to realize something that made their stomachs feel strange. They had spent centuries, maybe thousands of years, making massive decisions about what other civilizations needed without ever bothering to ask those civilizations directly. They had created enormous bureaucracies, complex governmental systems, and sophisticated technologies to solve problems that might not even exist. They had built their entire approach to leadership on the assumption that they knew better than everyone else what was good for the galaxy. The quantum builder representative, whose name was Shift Pattern, had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now their blue cloudy form started changing shapes rapidly, which was a sign of deep distress. In our dimension, we can see across multiple realities simultaneously, they said. We have observed thousands of possible futures for the Outer Rim planets. In 97% of those futures, our energy station project succeeds. But Bora asked quietly, have you observed any futures where you simply asked the planets what they wanted, instead of assuming you knew? Shift Pattern stopped changing shapes completely. Their form became perfectly still, which was something that had never happened before in recorded history. Bell then cleared his throat, and the sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. The human raises an interesting point, he said, but his voice sounded weak and uncertain. Perhaps we should consider this approach. But even as he spoke the words, everyone could hear that he was not sure if they were right anymore. For the first time in his 800 years of life, the Great Council leader was questioning whether the Galactic Council was as wise and effective as they had always believed. The foundation of everything they had built their leadership on was starting to crack. Bora sat back down, not realizing that her simple question had just caused an earthquake in the political structure of the entire galaxy. The 12 alien races looked at each other with expressions they had never worn before: doubt, uncertainty, and the uncomfortable feeling that maybe they had been wrong about almost everything. The meeting ended without any votes or decisions being made. For the first time in galactic history, the representatives left the chamber without their usual confidence. Instead, they walked away slowly, each one beginning to understand that their entire approach to governing might be fundamentally flawed. One human had asked one simple question, and now everything seemed different. The massive space station hung in the darkness between stars like a giant metal flower with 12 petals. Each petal belonged to one of the 12 most powerful alien races in the galaxy. Today was their monthly meeting, and today was special because, for the first time ever, a human would watch them work. Rakim sat very still in the corner of the huge meeting room. Her simple black suit looked plain next to the colorful robes and strange body shapes of the alien leaders. She held her tablet close to her chest and tried not to stare too much at the incredible beings around her. The meeting room was bigger than 3 football fields put together. The ceiling was so high that clouds could form up there if they wanted to. Each alien race had their own special area designed for their needs. The water-breathing Deepmar had a giant glass tank filled with blue liquid. The crystal-bodied Nexians sat on platforms that made their bodies sparkle with rainbow colors Bo-Ra had studied about. These aliens for months before coming here, but seeing them in person was completely different. The Velkari looked like tall purple people, but they had 4 eyes and everyone knew they had 4 brains too. They were supposed to be the smartest mathematicians. In the galaxy, the ancient Morvik had lived for hundreds of years and knew more history than entire libraries on Earth. The Hiver looked like giant insects with shiny black shells that clicked when they moved. The Zephyrians were tall and thin like walking trees but made of some kind of metal that changed colors. The quantum builders could change their shape whenever they wanted, and right now they looked like floating blue clouds with faces. Each race thought they were the smartest beings who had ever lived. They had ruled space for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. They had technology that could move planets and computers that could think faster than light. They spoke languages so complex that normal minds could not even understand the basic words. But today they had invited one human to watch them work. It was supposed to be funny. The aliens had discovered Earth only 6 months ago, and they could not believe that such a young species had somehow figured out space travel. It was like watching a baby learn to walk while Olympic runners were competing. The council leader thought it would be entertaining to let the humans see how real intelligence worked. Bo-Ra did not know they were laughing. At her, she thought this was the greatest honor any human had ever received. She had been chosen from thousands of scientists and diplomats to represent Earth at this meeting. She felt nervous but also excited to learn from beings who had solved problems that humans could not even imagine. The council leader was an ancient Morvek named Veltan, who had been alive for 800 years. His skin looked like old leather, and his eyes glowed with a soft gold light that meant he was thinking very hard. He had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. He had watched stars being born and die. He had helped make decisions that affected billions of lives across thousands of planets. Velden raised one long finger, and the room became completely quiet. Even though there were 12 different species who spoke 12 different languages, they all used universal translators so everyone could understand each other. The translators were tiny devices that could change any language into any other language instantly. Today we must solve the energy crisis in the Outer Rim planets, Velthan announced in his deep voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Our most advanced calculations show that these planets will run out of power in exactly 847 years. We must act now before it becomes a disaster. The Velkari representative stood up on his 4 legs. His name was Kevnor, and his purple skin was covered with mathematical symbols that glowed and changed as he thought. Each of his 4 brains was working on a different part of the problem. His 4 eyes looked in 4 different directions as he spoke. My people have spent 3 months calculating the exact energy requirements for all Outer Rim planets, he said proudly. We have determined that we need to build exactly 340 new energy stations across 12 star systems. This project will require 50 billion galactic credits and will take 200 years to complete, but it will solve the energy problem forever. The Nexians were next. Their crystal bodies could process information faster than the most advanced computers in the galaxy. Their representative was named Prism 7, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like music made of mathematics. Our quantum processing systems have run 4 million different simulations, she announced, and her crystal body sparkled with pride. The optimal solution requires building massive energy collectors around 15 different stars. We will need to move 6 planets to better positions and create artificial suns in 3 star systems that currently have no stars. The total cost will be 70 billion credits and it will take 300 years, but the energy output will be unlimited. Bo-Ra listened carefully and wrote notes on her tablet. She did not understand most of the technical words, but she tried to follow the basic ideas. The aliens kept talking about huge projects that would take centuries. and cost more money than entire planets could make in their whole existence. The Deepmar representative spoke next from inside his water tank. His name was Deep Current, and his voice bubbled through the liquid as he explained his people's solution. They wanted to drill into the cores of 50 planets to tap into natural energy sources. This would only take 150 years and cost 30 billion credits. Each alien race presented their solution, and each solution was more complicated than the last. The quantum builders wanted to fold space itself to create energy from nothing. The Hiver wanted to build machines that could eat asteroids and turn them into power. The Zephyrians wanted to capture the energy from exploding stars. All of their solutions involved massive construction projects that would reshape entire solar systems. They used words like quantum mechanics and dimensional engineering and stellar manipulation. They drew holographic pictures in the air showing their complex machines and mathematical formulas that filled the entire room. Bora kept taking notes. But she also kept thinking about something that seemed strange to her. All of these incredibly smart aliens were talking about building things and moving planets and creating artificial suns, but none of them had mentioned something that seemed very basic to her. The meeting went on for 6 hours. Each alien race tried to make their solution sound more impressive than the others. They argued about technical details that Bora could not understand. They showed computer simulations of their proposed megastructures. They debated the advantages of different types of energy collection. The aliens noticed Bora writing in her tablet, and some of them whispered to each other. "Look at the primitive human trying to understand our advanced concepts," they said quietly. "She probably thinks we are talking about magic because her brain cannot process such sophisticated ideas." As the hours passed, the aliens became more and more excited about their complicated solutions. They seemed to enjoy making their ideas as difficult as possible, as if the complexity itself proved how smart they were. The more impossible their projects sounded, the more proud they became. Finally, after 6 long hours of presentations and arguments, Velthan announced that they would vote on the best solution at next week's meeting. Each race would have time to make their proposals even more detailed and perfect. The meeting was almost over, and Bora had filled many pages of notes. She had learned incredible things about technology and engineering that humans had never imagined. But she still kept thinking about that one basic thing that nobody had mentioned. Velthan prepared to dismiss the council. Bora felt a strange urge to speak. She knew she was only supposed to observe. She knew these beings were infinitely smarter than her. She knew that her planet had just been discovered, and humans were like children compared to these ancient civilizations. But something inside her made her raise her hand slightly. The entire chamber fell silent. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy turned to stare at the small human woman who had dared to interrupt their meeting. Velthan looked surprised but curious. "You have something to say, young human?" he asked. Bora stood up slowly. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "I have been listening to all your solutions, and they are very impressive, but I have one simple question." She paused and looked around at all the alien faces staring at her. "Why don't you just ask the Outer Rim planets what they actually need?"